she looked trim and clean in her new coat of black paint. Unloading was in progress, and Broughton hurried on board, anxious to be present before any of the consignment of wine was set ashore. He was just in time, for the hatches of the lower forehold, in which the casks were stowed, had been cleared, and were being lifted off as he arrived. As he stood on the bridge deck, waiting for the work to be completed, he looked around. Several steamers were lying in the basin. Immediately behind, with a high bluff bow showing over the Bullfinch's counter, was the Thrush, his company's largest vessel, due to sail that afternoon for Corunna and Vigo. In the berth in front lay a Clyde Shipping Company's boat bound for Belfast and Glasgow, and also drew out that afternoon, the smoke from her black funnel circling lazily up into the clear sky. Opposite was the Arcturus, belonging to the I&C's rivals, Messrs. Babcock and Milman, and commanded by Black Mac, so called to distinguish him from the Captain MacTavish of differently coloured hair, Red Mac, who was master of the same company's Sirius. To Broughton, these ships represented links with the mysterious far-off world of romance, and he never saw one put to sea without longing to go with her to Copenhagen, Bordeaux, Lisbon, Spezia, or to whatever other delightful-sounding place she was bound. The fore-hatch being open, Broughton climbed down into the hold, armed with his notebook, and the unloading of the casks began. They were swung out in lots of 4, fastened together by rope slings. As each lot was dealt with, the clerk noted the contents in his book, from which he would afterwards check the invoices. The work progressed rapidly, the men straining and pushing to get the heavy barrels in place for the slings. Gradually the space under and around the hatch was cleared, the casks then having to be rolled forward from the farthest parts of the hold. A quartet of casks had just been hoisted, and Broughton was turning to examine the next lot, when he heard a sudden shout of "Look out there! Look out!" and felt himself seized roughly and pulled backwards. He swung round, and was in time to see the 4 casks turning over out of the sling and falling heavily to the floor of the hold. Fortunately, they had only been lifted some 4 or 5 feet, but they were heavy things and came down solidly. The 2 under were damaged slightly, and the wine began to ooze out between the staves. The others had had their fall broken, and neither seemed the worse. The men had all jumped clear, and no one was hurt. "Upend those casks, boys," called the foreman, when the damage had been briefly examined, "and let's save the wine." The leaking casks were turned damaged end up and lifted aside for temporary repairs. The 3rd barrel was found to be uninjured, but when they came to the 4th, it was seen that it had not entirely escaped. This 4th cask was different in appearance from the rest, and Broughton had noted it as not belonging to Messrs. Norton and Banks's consignment. It was more strongly made and better finished, and was stained a light oak colour and varnished. Evidently also it did not contain wine, for what had called their attention to its injury was a little heap of sawdust which had escaped from a crack at the end of one of the staves. "Strange-looking cask, this. Did you ever see one like it before?" said Broughton to the I&C foreman, who had pulled him back, a man named Harkness. He was a tall, strongly built man, with prominent cheekbones, a square chin, and a sandy moustache. Broughton had known him for some time, and had a high opinion of his intelligence and ability. "Never saw nothing like it," returned Harkness. "I tell you, sir, that there cask has been made to stand some knocking about." "It looks like it. Let's get it rolled back out of the way and turned up, so as to see the damage." Harkness seized the cask, and with some difficulty rolled it close to the ship's side out of the way of the unloading, but when he tried to upend it, he found it too heavy to lift. "There's something more than sawdust in there," he said. "It's the heaviest cask ever I struck. I guess it was its weight shifted the other casks in the sling."